Hi, my name is Jeff Kreisberger. Today, we're going to take you step by step through driving in hazardous winter conditions. As you can see, we have the perfect day to do this. Okay, some of the areas we're going to be paying attention to is space management, speed management, and allowing yourself enough cushion for safety in conditions like this. Let's go for a ride. The first thing you always want to remember is to do everything slowly. Your acceleration, your braking, your steering corrections. Treat your pedals as though there's eggs underneath your feet. Everything takes just a little more time. Always remember to have clean mirrors. Sometimes in this kind of weather, the salt spray can really glaze them over. You also want to remember your side windows. You want to keep them clean as well. Always run with your headlights on. The more other people can see you, the better chances they have to react. Now, when coming down a hill like this, we're going to be turning right. You always assume the road is in the worst condition possible. Always start slowing much earlier. Now, there's really no right-hand turn lane because they have not plowed that yet. So we're going to pay close attention to our mirrors as we turn, in case there's four-wheel drives or something that decide to try to turn that back into a right-hand turn lane. Sometimes in the deep snow, you have to beware of fire hydrants and different obstacles that might be obscured by the snow. Always try to catch or look at as much as you can when you make these turns before you start turning. See if there's any signs that something might be in that snow that shouldn't be there, or that you cannot see, should I say. Conditions like this, I always run with my fifth wheel as far forward as legally possible. You want to get as much weight as you legally can on your steer axles for better control. The same goes for the drives. I try to keep the trailer and the drive axles as close as possible, but I would like to be a little heavier on the drives than the trailer. Not much, just a little bit. Patience. We have a line of cars behind us now that are tailgating us. always want to make my intentions known as soon as possible so they have time to react, because they are not keeping a proper following distance. Always be aware of the other person. You as a professional know what you're doing. You can't count on these other people to do that. Always drive their vehicles for them. You ever find yourself to where you're breaking traction, ease off the pedal. Let the tires regain traction and slowly ease the throttle back down. Right now we have some gusts of wind coming from our right. You always want to keep that in mind. As we pass things like these trees on the right, the wind is going to slow down a little bit, but as we clear these trees, it's going to pick up again. You want to keep that in the back of your mind so you're kind of semi-prepared for it. Across the bridges, you always want to consider them to be in the worst condition possible. You always want to try to coast over them. Coasting meaning lightly let off the pedal until you reach the other side of the bridge, and then slowly reapplying the fuel. You can always use flags, tree branches, anything that can show you how bad the wind is. Pay attention to all your indicators. When coming up on snow plows, always be prepared for them to come over towards you, especially when their blade is angled that direction. At any given time, they can hit a sewer or a stump or something that'll deflect them directly towards you, so always pay attention to them as you're passing them. These conditions here are almost like a whiteout. You really can't see. So when your visibility is low, back out of it just a little bit. Try to find the edges of the road. Kind of just feel your way through it. You want to pay attention to how far you are off your telephone poles. Other indicators are these signs. You have like these guardrails. You want to try to keep your distance off of that stuff. Just because the roads clear up a little bit, do not develop a false sense of security, because at any given time, they can turn back to sheer ice. Sometimes in the heavy slush, it'll want to pull your steer tires. Keep a firm grip on the wheel. Drive the truck. Do not let the truck drive you, but respect it. The minute you don't respect this or the conditions, they'll definitely show you who's boss. I have a theory or a philosophy, if you will. You can drive too slow a bunch of times, but too fast only once. Sometimes the snow will get deep and it'll have these ruts that'll want to pull your wheel too. Always stay alert. As you can tell, road conditions are very different here just in the width of this highway. That side appears to be somewhat free of snow and ice, while this side definitely is not. The salt truck and snow plows have worked this side, they have not on this side. As the temperature drops, that will turn to a solid sheet of ice and almost look the same. Just always think of it as being the worst. That's your best bet. On days like this, pay real close attention to children, because most of them are not in school. But that does not stop them from going out and playing and running through the snow. Sometimes it's hard to see them with snow blindness. When applying the brakes, real gently. Start stopping much earlier. Okay, we have the green light. In town is where you're going to have more things to watch. A lot of people sliding out of the parking lots because they have misjudged their stopping distances, and they're going to slide right out in front of you. You have the issue of the children. You have people with their snow plows plowing the parking lots and pushing the snow out into the path in front of you. And a lot of things to pay attention to. Always keep your mind going and your head moving. Usually, the towns, the roads are in a little bit more decent shape than on the outskirts because there's more traffic stirring the roads up. As you leave the towns, be prepared for the road conditions to worsen, especially in these rural towns. The issue of the tailgaters. It's a very dangerous position for them. Always keep them in mind. Always be prepared for them to suddenly try to pass you. As we get to small construction areas like this, always be aware of what the snow might be hiding. There might be large holes or something, and try to make sure you stay in your lane. Reduce your speed. There's no traffic to worry about. Kind of give it some room. back to ice, back to pavement, back to ice. Just in that distance of 300 feet, it's changed 4 times now. If you feel yourself picking up speed and you feel uncomfortable with it, a light, steady pressure on the brake pedal, not enough to lock a tire, just enough to feel a drag, just a slight drag to slow yourself down. Do not jam on the brakes. Sometimes going in rural areas where there's tree limbs that are over the highway and power lines, the added weight of the snow and the ice may have things hanging just a little bit lower than what they normally do. Try to keep an eye on that kind of stuff so you don't damage the equipment or knock power lines out. This kind of area is wide open, but you get in some areas up in Michigan and Minnesota that have trees right next to the roads, and you have to pay attention to that stuff. Anytime you approach an intersection, you always want to pay attention to what your cross traffic and even the traffic coming towards you is doing. People not allowing for the conditions of the road can quite possibly slide, spin, go straight when they're wanting to turn and run into you. Like I said before, always drive their vehicle form. Make yourself as small a target as possible. Okay, we still have a green light. The traffic appears to be clear. We're going to nice and easily take off. Be aware of these piles of snow or snow drifts that's been created by the snow plows. When you're crossing them, sometimes can exhibit forces on your steering tires that'll, once you pull the steering wheel out of your hand, and cause you to lose control. As you can see, this ramp is in terrible condition as compared to the highway. That's going to be a negative on our side because we're going to have to travel a little bit slower than what we would normally be merging at, while the traffic on the highway is traveling at a little faster speed than what they would be doing if that was in the same condition as this. It looks as though the bottom of the ramp is just a little bit cleaner, but remember, we always assume the worst. Aware of these drifts over here that can take and cause you to lose control. The law states you're not supposed to cross a solid white line, but we just did in order to stay out of the deep snow. If we had stayed on the right side of that white line, we could have possibly jackknifed or run off into the ditch. As far as your following distances, the rule that I like to use and what I always keep in front of me and in my mind as I act as though each one of these vehicles is a brick wall. And I ask myself the question, can I stop before I hit the wall? Even though these roads appear to be in decent condition, you still want to assume the worst. If you have a CB radio in your truck, you should always have that turned on. There's a lot of information that can be learned from listening to the conditions ahead. There could be accidents, there could be slick spots that other drivers might report. It's good information to know. People pass you, the left lane, as you can see, isn't 100% cleared off. Always give them enough room to get by, if you can. As you can see, our lane is fairly clear. We're going to stay to the right side of it, not placing ourselves in danger, but allowing them more room. Now, as the vehicles pass, sometimes you may experience whiteouts from the blowing snow. You can experiencing them losing control if they cross the line and there happens to be a pile of snow down the center. They can hit that and lose control. Now, this is a prime example of somebody not doing what they should be doing. This jackknife here is definitely an avoidable situation. Some people claim, well, the four-wheeler cut in front of me and caused me to lose control. Well, if he would have been driving 100% defensively, that quite possibly could not have happened. People pass you, always mentally be prepared for them to do such a thing. Always be prepared to react to it. Jackknifes are caused from excessive speed, improper following distances, and improper braking and steering techniques. If you see an emergency on the highways to where you need to slow down quick, I myself always put on my four-ways to help warn others behind me that there's something ahead as I'm slowing down. If I find myself going much slower than the minimum speed limit, I also place my four-ways on. They're called hazard lights, and anytime my vehicle is considered to be in a hazardous position, such as moving too slow, I put the hazard lights on. As you can see, this motorist up here also used improper winter driving techniques. Well, he's really going to get to work on time this morning. Goes back to taking your time. There's nothing like patience. The difference in 10 miles an hour from one end of the town to the other is hardly measurable. But it is measurable if you don't get there at all. Be very careful of the SUVs, the four-wheel drives. These people buy these vehicles with a false sense of security that they're going to be able to go anywhere or do anything with them. I kind of have a theory. The difference between four-wheel drive and two-wheel drive is about 300 feet of cable. That's about how much further off the road they make it between their speed that they're traveling in their SUV versus what they probably would be traveling in their vehicle that didn't do quite as well. Now, as what's demonstrated here is the improper following distances by two vehicles and a large truck. These trucks are going entirely too fast, and they're following way too close. If that red Beretta had to slam on the brakes, there could be a possible fatality out of it. Trucks tailgating cars. It's a formula for disaster. As you can tell, the road conditions just changed. They went from slushy back to this, and the vehicles are not slowing down. No turn signal. These guys are really paying attention. When you're driving, always make sure your dashboard is clear for using your defrosters. There's nothing like trying to drive in this stuff and not being able to see at the same time. Always make sure your wiper blades are in good shape before you take off on your trip. It might be sunny down in Kansas City. Within 2 hours, you can be in Omaha in conditions like this. When you're decelerating off these interstates that are somewhat clean, always think the ramp is in the worst condition possible. You always want to get your speed way down, much lower than what you would normally do, because you never know, you could hit this ramp and it'd be a solid sheet of ice, especially the ones that go downhill. See these tracks? That's clear evidence that somebody did not do what they were supposed to. Now, you seen how fast these trucks passed us, and take a look at it. Where are they right now? Always be aware of your intersections and allow yourself enough room to stop before you get there and be surprised. Very slow speed, we're going to hit this little bitty pile of snow. Watch what it does to the steering wheel. See? Always be prepared for that. Now that is greatly amplified when traveling at a higher speed. Well, that concludes our ride today. Some of the things to remember in closing is, first of all, always wear your safety belt. Always think about the other guy. Think about what they're going to do, and always plan and leave yourself enough time and enough room to react to it. Some of the other things to remember, things to carry with you, would be a source of food, something high in protein, something that you can live on for a day or two. Always keep extra clothing, waterproof boots and gloves, things like that. Try to always be prepared if you get stuck someplace for a day or two. Always run on the top side of your fuel tanks. Pass up very few fuel stops. Always try to fuel as often as possible, in other words. Some of the other things to remember, I guess, would be just safety. Always keep safety in front of you. Always think about what you're doing before you do it. React gently, slowly, smoothly. Too slow is good. Try to treat everything as though this is your first snow. No matter how much experience you have, always treat this like the first time you ever drove in it. And in closing, that's it. Just be safe. Thank you for your time.